How does the United States benefit from the lifting of these restrictions?
I think this is a game changer for the United States in several ways. First of all, we can start having normal relations with a neighbor 90 miles off our shore, which will lead to a whole set of cooperation and agreements that are in our interest as much as Cuba's interest. Secondly, we've been isolated from the rest of the international community in dealing with Cuba. The rest of the world has relations with Cuba, and we're now having a chance to catch up and be involved in a process of dialogue and I think change that's already underway on the island, and that will give us some opportunity to have influence there in a way that we haven't before.
Sir, speaking of influence, American businesses are eager to do business in Cuba, as Willem just pointed out. What's the potential profit look like for them? What will their bottom line look like near term?
I think it's going to take some time before American businesses will really see any great upside to the market there. We have to keep in mind that the Cuban economy is very restricted, and for most Cubans, their income is very limited, only $20 a month in salary for most state workers. So there's very little capital in the system to allow people to actually become serious consumers. That said, the Cuban people receive a lot of remittances from Cuban Americans, from other Cubans abroad, and they're living off of that cash that they get. And we've already, Cuban Americans have sent over $6 billion since the remittances program was expanded several years ago. So this is allowing Cubans to open their own businesses and to take advantage of the openings in the economy that President Raul Castro has established over the last few years. I think in certain sectors, particularly in travel, in telecommunications, in agriculture, in construction, there'll be some initial interesting new activity, but it will very much depend on the Cuban government and how they will open up those sectors to allow more American commerce and activity.
Well, Mr. Picon, what will increased tourism mean for Cuba's economy, particularly for hotels on the island? Are they up to international standards, and will they be able to handle the increased demand?
Well, the tourism sector has done very well in Cuba over the last 10 years, and they have invested in new hotels and other structures. And they're investing in new sites, new golf courses, marinas, even condominiums that will be available for foreign renting and even leasing. So this is an infrastructure that is well underway. It still has a long ways to go. They already receive millions of visitors from Europe, from Canada, from Russia, from other parts of Latin America. So the additional insertion of American visitors will be a big boost for them, but they don't yet have the full capacity for a big insertion of American travelers.
Mr. Picon, will we now see a flood of U.S. goods going to Cuba? Will American exporters begin to see tangible financial gains?
I don't think so in the short term. I think we do have this problem of how much capital the Cubans have, and the embargo is still in place. So in the permitted categories of food and telecommunications, construction materials, yes, you'll see some initial quick activity that, there's a lot of pent-up demand on the U.S. side to get to know Cuba. But if anyone's really interested in the Cuba market, it's a long-term game.
Sir, one benefit for private citizens could be the renting out of their homes or apartments. How will the Cuban government deal with its citizens making money outside of state control?
No, I think this is very much welcomed by the Cuban government. They've already begun a process of regulating and licensing these businesses so that average Cubans can rent out a room like a bed and breakfast in their home, and this is a very important source of income for them. And I think the government wants to see that part of the economy come into the formal system. It would be properly taxed like in any other country, and they welcome this new insertion of interest in the economy.
Mr. Picon, we have about a minute left. During the revolution in 1959, the Castro regime seized property owned by its citizens and by American businesses. Is there a likelihood we might see a protracted legal fight with the people and corporations affected trying to recoup those losses?
I think that is one of the big challenges up ahead. There are about 6,000 claims that have been registered by the United States, and these will have to be negotiated, some kind of settlement. It also raises a big question for foreign investors looking at Cuba and wondering, well, how secure are my property rights in this country? And those cases will have to be resolved and negotiated in the coming years.